Thank you very much, Vicky. Thank you guys for having me, and it's a pleasure to go through this stuff today, try to inspire some of the next generation to take up their craft and not be afraid to do it on their own. So as she was saying, I'm a motion designer and I run a studio. It's a solo operation, and I'm going to talk today about all the different ways that that has benefited me, and hopefully give you some tangible tips and tricks for how to do that in the future. So I'm a motion designer by training, but owning my own business and starting out that way, I have also become many other things. So you become the manager of the projects and the client relationships, and of course, all things money. So I'm going to be telling you about all my experiences today, and hopefully it will inspire you guys to take up and do the same. And I'm literally going to show you how much money I make. So hopefully that will help some of the inspiration, and be something that not every single creative might share. I'll start with some of my motion design work. So this is a project for Cineplex that I worked on. They were launching a logo for podcasts so they could promote the different releases every week, and get people in the theater, obviously. Clearly this was pre-pandemic. I did this project just around the start of 2020. So I created this logo for them that was specifically meant to exist in motion, and it was built to be a frame for the content for the different movies and the different campaigns that would be coming out. And I did some strategy work. I wrote some taglines for them and helped them figure out how to promote that. Unfortunately, this has been put on hiatus during the pandemic. Obviously, Cineplex and the entire movie theater industry is having quite a time right now. So I literally finished this and was hoping to go to the theater and see the final piece I had done for the project was this in-cinema advertisement. That was a 30-second graphics ad. And I never got to see that in the theater, but hopefully I'll get the chance. This next one is something I did for World Wildlife. This was a recent campaign. This is just a little snippet of a campaign that was on Instagram and Facebook. And the idea here was to promote a report about the loss of wildlife. And I came up with this idea to use. I had seen some things on Instagram and Facebook that sort of like break the fourth wall by leaving the video frame with the content that you're doing. So I think I did 5 or 6 different spots that all had different statistics about the report, and did this same thing where it sort of like it breaks the frame and then it joins those 2 videos together, and you realize you've been watching this sort of like false little middle section. And they got some great engagement on those posts. I had a lot of people say like, oh, that was a real like thumb stopper when I was scrolling by. So that's the kind of thing that I try to accomplish for the clients I work with. This is my talk from Design Thinkers 2018. And this was a 10-minute time slot. So I applied to do a talk, and I got to do just a 10-minute slot, but it was a slot on the main stage at Design Thinkers, which is an event with like 1,000 to 1,500 professionals and other designers. And I talked about working from home and how much your office fucking sucks and why we all needed to work from home more. So as you just heard me discussing with Vicky, the current situation with the pandemic is not quite what I intended, but this was a big part of the kind of project that I could take on, the kind of project that I can do when I have the freedom of being self-employed, and, or as I like to call it, being fun employed. So that brings us to the topics today. This was just a joke that I had with a few friends who were kind of also doing freelance type work, and that you know, we didn't have a real job, quote, but that being fun employed, being unemployed had its benefits. And when you're first starting out and you've got, you know, you're living, I was living downtown Toronto, and there was tons to do. Things weren't locked down or whatever. And that was just like literally the freedom was wonderful. But as I've gotten older, it's been a few more years. I realized that the sort of the quality of life and the work-life balance, the balance has been wonderful throughout the years, and I've been able to continue that into now, like getting older, getting married, having a family, and the freedom to schedule my time the way I want it, in the grander sense, the macro sense of like vacation, when you want to go on vacation, blocking off time, and more than you would get if you were working in an office or if you were working full time. And the freedom to sort of in general to work harder when I want to work harder and take a break when I want to take a break. It can be, it's not always a good thing if you get yourself into projects that kind of go off the rails. Sometimes it can affect you in a negative way. So there's always pros and cons, but the more you do it, the more you'll figure out that balance, and you'll be able to get a schedule going that works for you. So yeah, I have been doing this, and I started out thinking, you know, this is me, I'm going solo. This is like the dream. It's a sort of like mental image that you get of how cool it's going to be. And that dichotomy sort of sets up this like, oh, is this how I'm treating my clients and the people I work for? I think this is a very common misconception about working for yourself, and that you're sort of like, you end up pitting yourself against people on the client side. But in actual fact, doing this now for 10 years, the relationship is much more like this. It's you know, good clients are your colleagues. I mean, they're your collaborators, and colleagues in the sense that you're working with them, and working by yourself and being a contractor, being a consultant in that way really encourages you to talk to them more, and discourages you from sort of like being in your own little bubble creatively, coming back with an idea you think is wonderful, but the client, you know, you weren't really listening to the client. When you work by yourself and you treat your clients this way, the effect is much more positive on the process. So let's get to some actual like tangible tips. Your portfolio and your resume, yeah, no shit, this is basic stuff. Then there are tons of resources out there about how to do this properly, how to do a professional job with this. I'm going to stay away from this specific topic because I think there's been a ton said about it, and there's a ton out there. I want to talk about more personal stories about like my own experience starting. So my first one, tip number one, summer fun employment. So this was the summer between my third and fourth year at design school. So that was at York University, Sheridan College's joint program. And my friends and I were trying to figure out what we were going to do for the summer. We were living in a house that we had over the summer, so we weren't getting kicked out from residence, like, you know, the early days of school. We basically decided like, okay, if we go get crappy jobs and we make like $15 an hour, you know, you extrapolate that out to 40 hours a week for 4 months. So you might make $10,000 in like a full summer of doing some service job or whatever you can scrape together. And then we decided, okay, that sounds like something that we could get to if we start doing freelance design work. We have this specialized skill. I mean, sure, we're young and sure, we're still students, but there are got to be people out there who will pay something for the service, and we can do some real client work and learn. So we started a business. We made a website. There was 2 of us doing it together, and this was in 2006. So there was a lot less motion design work specifically out there in the world, but we did do some titles for like small independent films, you know, who didn't have a huge budget, but they had a little bit of a budget. And then we did some online promotions that were basically like things like that were YouTube ads essentially. And we did a little bit of web design work, but we tried really hard to focus on motion graphics because that's what we were both interested in. And we both really wanted to push and get some more professional examples there. And I can't stress enough that we learned so much by just jumping into it and dealing with some real clients. And a whole year later, when we were finishing school and we were putting together our portfolios to try to go out and get jobs, you know, more permanent full-time jobs, the work that I had done that summer with these like real clients turned out to be some of the most interesting and the most, not impressive, I guess, but in the sense that like when you're talking to someone for a job interview, yeah, I guess they're impressed, even if they're not literally impressed with the creative of the design work, they're impressed that you had the initiative to start your own thing, that you know, taught yourself some of those skills, that you put yourself out there, that you took that risk. And I think that was a big part of me getting my very first job. You know, graduated in April of that year, 2007, and went on a trip and did some other stuff and messed around. But then I got like when I was looking for a job in the summertime, I got a job pretty quickly in the summer, and got going with my, you know, real career in that sense. So yeah, summer fun employment, if you can find some time to do this, what you can learn is stuff that you wouldn't necessarily be learning in class, and stuff that you would definitely not be learning if you know, went and got a job at the mall, or a job. And I think I had friends who worked at Canada's Wonderland because we were up at York University and it's really close by. All right, tip number two, volunteer. Volunteer your services, volunteer your design work. I myself got involved with the Rgd. Vicky mentioned that I'm now a board member for the Registered Graphic Design Association. Rgd was an amazing place where I got to network early on, and by putting my hand up and contributing, I was able to meet a ton of people who, you know, could help me out, could get me going in the industry, could give me tips and tricks. For more information on this, if you're interested, the Rgd, rgd.ca is their website, and they have tons of information. But if you Google my name specifically with Rgd, they've done like an article about, you know, here's Julian, here's his involvement, and it's got more stories about what I have done with Rgd in over the years. And helping out early. So I started with the very first thing I noticed with their event for design thinkers. I saw some footage or something. I don't think I was even at the event, and I realized that they didn't have any motion graphics work up on the screens for this big conference back in, you know, this is early, this is 2008 or something. But so I volunteered my services, and I said, you know, I will contribute, and I will give my time for that, for the association, and to make the event better, and to get in there and, you know, meet some people. And it sticks in my head so much because I went the next year. So they sort of took my information, and when it came around again, they contacted me about it, and I got to go, and I got to have a meeting with two of were the hottest creative directors. Back then it was called Amoeba Corp. Now they're called Jackknife. They do amazing design work for some really killer clients. And I got to go down and have this meeting with them and not feel like I was this junior, you know, that barely had a year experience, because they were volunteering their services to help out the Rgd and to be part of this. And I was also volunteering. It put us on this equal footing. that I couldn't have gotten any other way. Because usually if you go in as a junior, you know, it's inevitably, it's this sort of like interview environment. And the experience that I had working with them was fantastic. And then that led to some, like, they called me again for some other paid work, like after that. This is back when I was first starting as On the Chase, or even this was maybe before. And then when I was running the business, then I did get a little bit of, you know, other paid work from them. And yeah, so volunteering yourself, volunteering your time, being generous with that aspect. If you see something that, you know, you can be involved with it, that you can benefit too. You know, big caveat on this is volunteer yourself and do that sort of thing, but do not work for free. There's a big difference between doing spec work, doing unpaid work for a client who should be paying you, like a corporation. The classic sort of carrot is that they'll be like, oh, you know, this, we don't have any money right now, or we have very, very little money, but in the future, we're, you know, it's going to be better. There's going to be big jobs. There's going to be whatever. And this, in my experience, has absolutely always been a lie, or at best a delusion that the client has. You need to get paid for your work at the time you do it. The money that they will make as a result of the work you do is real money. So why would you not be paid for your work and your involvement? So just like any other aspect of life where, you know, you volunteer when you want to, and it's good for you, and you are connected to the cause, or you feel like you want to meet people, you want to get out there. Working for free is the opposite. You're locking yourself in this box. These business people who don't understand the creative side, you know, they might say like, oh, well, you know, don't you love what you do? It's like, yeah, just because I like my job and I have chosen a career that I enjoy, just because I like my work doesn't mean that I shouldn't be paid for it, right? There's a great resource, and I'm going to paste links for all these different things I'm mentioning at the end. But there's a great resource through the Rgd that I was involved with. That's called Free, Fee, or Flee, and it's really it's like a choose your own adventure thing for your situation. It's like a survey. It's like, who are you talking to? What are they telling you? And it will try to give you advice for whether you should take it, whether you should politely decline, whether you should ask for this, you know, and give you tangible bits of emails you can copy paste and try to have a discussion, because it's really important that as young designers, you value yourself and you value the work you can do. Yeah, and sort of as a wrap up on this thought for volunteering, it's not a quick, and like networking in general, and it's not a quick fix for getting work or finding clients and getting paid and stuff. But I look back now at my career in the last 10 or 12 years, and three of the biggest jobs that I've ever done are like directly related to people I met through this network, through this community. And the talk that I got to go do. So I already showed this slide, this amazing experience that I had, and this incredible chance that I got submitting to get this time slot for the talk. I don't think that this would have been possible if I hadn't, you know, made connections and exposed myself to these events and these people and these networks. All right, tip number 3, getting near to the end now. So talking about working for free, just money in general. You, as a creative, you absolutely need to learn to speak the language, and you need to be able to talk to business people and different clients about money. It's the fastest way to gain their respect and to get yourself seen as a professional and be able to charge more as you continue, and be able to charge more in the future. So my tip for you is to ask your teachers, ask your professors. They have a professional aspect of their life too. A lot of the profs who work in design and creative stuff, had studios. Maybe they teach part-time and they're still active doing professional work. Just ask about the money aspect, ask about business, ask about how they started. It's completely an underutilized and undertaught skill. And it's super important. And the transparency, I've been running a whole series of webinars now for Rgd called Show Me the Money. And that's all about, the transparency. The more we talk about it, the more all the different creative people share about their experiences. We're just going to give each other the confidence. We're going to raise that bar, and we're going to take away the fear that we can't charge that much for our work. That there's always room to charge more, and that the work we do is extremely valuable to clients, obviously, and to society at large. So the other resource that I'll talk about is the Rgd Salary Survey, which is a creative. They've had like 5,000 creatives across Canada respond to the survey and give anonymized. So it's transparent, but it's anonymized. Everyone's more comfortable doing that. Not everybody is comfortable talking about money regularly. So that's called Creative Earners, and I'll link that for you. And that is literally what I used to try to figure out what to negotiate my first job, my first salary that I got paid when I was working full-time at my very first thing. So speaking of transparency, I'm going to follow through on my claim that I would show you guys how much money I've been making. And this is something that I've shown from a pricing standpoint, from a professional standpoint in these webinars about how to price your creative work and how to do more. But in this context right now, for you guys, this is something that you can show your families about what it is to work in a creative industry, help dispel the starving artist myth. There are so many high-paying jobs in creative industries. What I do is just a small part of a much larger, puzzle of all kinds of stuff. So this chart, you can see 2007, 2008, that's my first full-time job that I got, and my salary was $37,000. And then I was freelancing on the side, and I left. That's a whole other topic of why I chose that time. But when I started my own thing, and granted, that first year, it was not more than I had been making, but I knew that there was growth options. And I used the Rgd Salary Survey to set myself a goal. It's like, I read in there that creative directors at design agencies and design studios can make $100,000. So I was like, I'm going to try to make $100,000 doing this on my own. And if, I can't get anywhere near that, maybe I'll reassess in 5 years, or, I didn't set myself like a rock solid goal of get rich quick scheme or anything. But you can see that over the years, it's grown. And the second line, the blue line, is the number of projects that I worked on each year. So this is from a talk where I was doing about, pricing and different ideas about that. So the takeaway there is that you can do fewer projects for more money. It's all about positioning yourself, and it's all about getting the confidence to do that. It's not even really, I look back and it's like, these are things that I could have done in the first 3 or 4 years. It took me longer, but that's all part of why we're sharing and why we're being transparent, and why you guys hopefully are here and can be inspired. I'm going to wrap it up, and we can do some question and answer. I would love to hear from a few of you about what you're thinking. So yeah, thank you guys very much for having me. And if there's any questions, I would love to take them. Now, I don't know if what the plan will be for.
Okay, we have one that has come in, Julian. What advice do you have for someone who has zero experience doing what you do, but wants to explore it? Best school, best place to volunteer?
I mean, I understand that if you're not financially able to jump right into like college or university level schooling on something, that might be something you have to save up money for a jump you have to make. Personally, I went to York and Sheridan. I know that program specifically is ending. I've seen wonderful work out of Seneca and George Brown, which are college level ones in the GTA. But as for, I mean, there are tons of resources online as well. The stuff that's put out by Chris Do, who I just spoke with last week at Design Thinkers. I did a session on Friday with him. And what he's doing, he sort of has this like deep-seated belief that education is being disrupted and it's going to change fast because of all the things that you can do online. So he has a ton of free resources on YouTube. Chris Do, and the business is called The Future with no E on the end. And I haven't got the full lowdown on why there's no E on the end, but the tips and tricks he has there and the free resources are amazing. I know that he specifically, his business model is also to like give away the free beginner stuff, and then as you build, there's more and more specialized content, there's workshops, there's private coaching, there's all kinds of other aspects, and that's part of how he makes his money. But the stuff that's free, that's there for everyone to watch, is like ridiculously good. The quality of production is amazing. He's very engaging, and they've got a great network of stuff there. So there's education. So that's Chris Do and The Future. And from the volunteering side of things, personally for me as a designer who wanted to specialize in motion graphics, volunteering for the Design Association was partially an accident because I got involved through that Design Thinkers thing, wanting to just do some design work. But it became quickly apparent to me that because I was a specialist, I would, meeting other graphic designers who worked in studios or other companies, I was networking for my business and I was networking for my career because they could give me work. They could hook me up with other people who needed animation and motion graphics. So think about what you want to do and put yourself out there and volunteer for something. Like another example from early in my career was Hot Docs. So that's a film festival in Toronto focused on documentary. And I really wanted to get involved with doing graphics for films. So I went and talked to them, and that was a partial. So I worked on some stuff for them that was like partially my donated time and partially paid. And that was all worked out in the invoicing and the negotiation. So they got like a great deal essentially. And I got to attend the event and network and do the stuff that I thought was important for my career.
Very good.
So yeah, I would encourage them to think about what they want to do exactly and volunteer, like in an association or for a nonprofit that's connected to that industry.
Very good advice. What is the hardest concept you had to create for
hardest concept?
The hardest concept you had to create for motion graphics? One of the most difficult client projects you've worked on?
Yeah, that's interesting. From a conceptual side, the most difficult thing is creating something interesting out of content that is essentially not so interesting. So, I mean, some examples of that, like really dry sort of financial projects. Trying to think of some stuff from like earlier in the career. Trying to give them something that is meaningful for their content. A lot of the time, like I'm writing a script, so they give me, say it's a brochure, like, oh, we have a website, here's the information about the project, like boom, not hard, make a video. And I'm like, well, first of all, this is like 4 times more content than it's going to fit in a 1-minute video. You'd be surprised how short the scripts are. And secondly, like, this is boring and no one's going to care about this unless you tell like a story about it, unless you give me a reason to, be intrigued. So that is always a hurdle. What's another example of one that I did? One that was about RESPs, education savings, for a nonprofit that was all about, they wanted to let people know that you can get an RESP. You don't need to have money to actually put in the account. The government will give you grant money if you have a low income, and help you save for your child's future. And there was this sort of misconception that, like, because you don't have any money to put into a savings account, that's not for you. Because all the banks that are advertising it, they want you to put money in and they want to make money off of you, right? But so that was a really sort of dry financial. I was like, I don't know, how do I enter this? How do we make this interesting? It was a very, very like policy financial kind of problem. And I turned out realizing, like, oh, this is all about the parents' love for their children. This is all about wanting to give them a bright future. So I made a video that was, this one's on my website, inspired by Dr. Seuss. I wrote like a script that's like a poem that's all about how much you do for your children, and how that is enough, and you don't actually need to like give money. You can save for your kid's future just by going through the effort of doing this for your child. Anyway, that's like a really quick rundown of that, but it became this really fun, interesting cartoon of a project that I think when we started out, nobody thought that's where it was going to go. And that's what's really fun and interesting about the work that I do, and convincing the client on the other side of the table is a huge part of it, right? You can have these wacky ideas, and if they think they're wacky, if they think that they're not connected to what the client wants to accomplish, then they're not going to go for it. But you have to learn, that's another skill, talking about your work, talking about what it means, connecting it to what the client is doing, listening to their problems and trying to solve it.
I think that's a very important takeaway, is just listening to the clients and trying to find a solution for them as the professional. We know technology overall changes quickly. How quickly does it change for you and the programs you're using to build your graphics?
Outrageously quickly. And I feel, I don't feel like I'm on top of every wave that goes by. It's interesting. It's difficult to keep up. I find the new sort of structure of how software works. So now almost everything that I use is like a subscription-based payment platform. Adobe is the mother of all these platforms now. And the Creative Cloud, as much as there's all kinds of people who will hate on Adobe or have their issues with it, it's fucking incredible, like what they've done and how the programs all intertwine. And by being a subscription-based thing, it frees me to be able to try new things and to be able to be like, oh, I'm just going to like install that because it's just one click to install a whole new program, and load it up and try something. I'm trying to think of some examples. I use some of their new 3D features to integrate some 3D into my work. I use this like character animation that basically like you sit with your webcam and it has face tracking. So it's kind of like Snapchat or Instagram. They're using face tracking technology, and then you can animate your character just by like doing a performance on the webcam. So I use that in a couple projects, and those sorts of like new innovations. Oh, and then AR stuff too. So I'm getting into augmented reality stuff. This is sort of disconnected to my professional work. So my wife is a professional artist. She's a painter, and we have realized that there's a lot of overlap between like how she can work on larger format kind of mural based work, and then using augmented reality through your phone, through your tablet. You can do time-lapsing videos of the content. So like later, long after she's painted it, people can be standing there with their phone and they can watch her paint it like in reality on the wall. So some work like that, and the same thing that the software exists, and being able to sort of just like try things and find new ways to jump in has been great. And I do my best, but even people who work in the industry full time find it hard to feel like they're keeping up.
Especially when you're juggling the clients and client projects, and you have to learn new things as well.
Absolutely, and like wherever you can, get the client to pay for it while you're learning.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, is there a website you can recommend where people can learn about volunteer or intern positions? Does it have anything?
So like I keep talking about the Rgd because that's what I've been involved with for so long, and they have such an amazing wealth of programming. They have got mentorship programs. I think a lot of the schools do internship placements. So that's something you can relatively, I think, expect if you go to, I mean, specifically for design, and if you go to school for graphic design at college or university, that they've got internship placements that are part of the final year of your work at the school. I did one of those, and the schools try really, really hard to connect you with like businesses that are doing it correctly, because there is a lot of abuse. I would go so far as to say abuse of interns. You kind of have to watch out. It almost falls in that category of like doing spec work, in the sense that like if you're just running around for them getting coffee for free, completely unpaid, and no one is teaching you anything about the industry, like that happens, and that's really shitty, and it's not cool. An internship is supposed to be a learning opportunity. There's supposed to be a relationship where the businesses, you know, contribute to your education. So there's some interesting up and downs. Anyway, like if you just went out and wildly emailed for internships, I think you might get yourself in trouble. So I think a resource like Rgd, or going through like a school program would be a good way to do that. I have some links here that I can paste in. Let me X out of my presentation, and I will paste these links in the chat window.
Perfect.
Can I give it to everyone?
Yeah, send it to everyone, and then it'll be available again after. So if you've missed it, you aren't able to take it, it should be available on the recording.
Cool.
After the fact. So yeah, well, you type up any of the links. Oh, you were already done.
Yeah.
I think that just about wraps up our session. It was really interesting. I've learned a lot about, you know, running your own company, freelance, very beneficial. We hope you did too. We appreciate your time. And as you start the school application process, or to explore where your talents fit in the creative industry, be sure to visit creativefutures.ca. We have a session scheduled for 3 p.m. with a studio manager talking about internships.
Wonderful. There you go.
Yeah, it seems to be volunteer and internship day today. If you haven't already registered, you can do so at creativefutures.ca and just click on speaker series. Thank you, Julian, for volunteering your time on this.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I wish everybody the best.
Have a great day, everyone.